guys, welcome back to Let's Play Final Fantasy 3. Yes, I said 3. I didn't go over this last time, so I'll do it now. Final Fantasy has had a weird run when it comes to naming things in the transition from the Japan market to the American or North American market. This is Final Fantasy 3 on the Super Nintendo, which was the third Final Fantasy game released in North America. However, it wasn't the third game released in Japan. It's actually the sixth game released in Japan, hence why it's actually Final Fantasy VI. It just, to make things less confusing, they only named it the third one because it was only the third one released in North America, which in turn made it more confusing because it did. Anyway, they never released the original Final Fantasy II. The one that we got in North America was actually Final Fantasy IV, and they didn't release Final Fantasy III or Final Fantasy V during the initial SNES run of the series. So anyway, figured I'd clear that up. Now, where were we? Ah, that's where we were. You will soon get to learn this song very well. This song is called Awakening. And it basically serves as this character's theme throughout the game. Strangely enough, her name is attributed to a different song, which is never really played in relation to her character. We'll get into that in a little bit here, but as I said in the previous episode, we're going to be leaning, and I'm going to try and slow down a lot of these scenes to kind of take a look at the side here. There's only so many times we're going to be able to look at the Google translation, like in this case, and go, what? That has nothing to do with anything that was going on here. But yeah, the Google translation is just there to make us laugh, and I'm sure we'll get a few instances of that over the course of the game. The Game Boy Advance translation is probably objectively more accurate than the SNES one. The SNES one has maybe a little more personality, but even that, from the bits and pieces that I've heard, I've not actually experienced the Game Boy Advance translation to myself as I've played this game multiple times. It's always been either the PlayStation version, which was surprisingly the first time I played this game, or the Super Nintendo version of the game, which I'm playing here. So just kind of keep your eye over on the side here. I'll try and make little bits of comments here as time goes on, but I won't be acknowledging every single thing that shows up over there. Now, you'll have noticed if you're looking at the side that they talked about this slave crown in, I think it was the fan translation, in an earlier part of the dialogue. So yeah, the idea here is this slave crown had let others gain control of her. Do whatever they told you to do. Yeah, some of these little bits of dialogue you'll notice here, I'll scroll down a bit. Sometimes they're going to cut off little bits of it. I don't know why they don't let me just resize all the boxes, but they don't, so sorry. But yeah. We were no longer forced to follow orders. This is a good thing. Don't remember a thing. Now, if this was in a game that came out today, I would be very annoyed because I'm super tired of the amnesiac trope, which is far too affluent in RPGs and JRPGs specifically. They just love to do that so that they give you a way of kind of, I think it's more of a narrative device to just kind of like how Tidus was in Final Fantasy X, where he was the lens that you saw the world through because the world was so much different than the one he was familiar with, and in turn the one that the player is unfamiliar with. I think that's why they do it so often in these games, but I really wish they wouldn't because it's just not all that interesting. I'd rather they just introduce us, you know, if you want to have the character not know what's going on, introduce us at the end of a journey. They did it in Final Fantasy V. It worked fine there. But anyway. Mysterious young woman controlled by the Empire and born with the gift of magic. They actually give a name to the Empire in the Game Boy Advance translation, but this is, I would say, our protagonist, but it's not all that clear who the protagonist of this game is. They really separated it out. In fact, I was, in the course of my research for this game, apparently they gave 2 characters to a bunch of different writers, and that writer was to work on developing those 2 characters. And I believe there's 14 some odd characters. No, 14 characters in this game. And, well, in my opinion, that's too many. But it kind of will explain, or it's kind of a reasoning for why the story is written the way it's written. And I'm not going to get into it too far. In some of the other translations, I believe was it the PlayStation version that did this? We got Tina in some of the versions. The fan translation there has translated her name as Tina there. Let's see here. Is there anything particular here? So yeah, this, there we go. It's, what is shown here is the katakana for her name, and I guess technically Tina would be the correct translation. I believe they would have made the change because Terra sounds more foreign to a North American audience, and I would presume that Tina would be vice versa to a Japanese audience. Yeah, you'll notice over with the Game Boy Advance translation, they're talking about recovering rather quickly. And of course, they bring that up in this translation, or the second dialogue box here. Hey, it's doggos! Magitek Armor Pilot. Okay. She's an officer of the Empire, huh? You'll notice there in the Google Translate one, daughter is done. Apparently, the one of the Japanese words for girl can also be used for daughter. The Japanese have an interesting take on the language, and a lot of words can, with the same spelling, can be used for different things. I think like grandmother and old lady are very interchangeable as well. Stuff like that. It's kind of weird, at least from, you know, a Western perspective. But it causes confusion in translations. There's no actual mention of a daughter here. They're referring to Terra. Don't have time to explain. These fools aren't gonna listen to reason. Over here. Before we follow him, you don't have to do this now, but you can. Every time we encounter a clock in this game, you're going to want to try and press the A button on it to hopefully get an elixir. More often than not, you will get one. I'll keep the brutes occupied. Alright. Sadly, going out here stops Awakening, which is basically Terra's theme. Uh-oh. Those are more of the guards that we were fighting in the previous episode. Now, at the end of the last episode, we were fighting something. By the way, let's open up our menu here. We are no longer in the Magitek armor. Now we have to rely on what we have. Now, you can put Terra in the back row, and I might as well. Take a look at some of her equipment here. It's all pretty basic leather, mithril, basic stuff that you get in the start of pretty much any Final Fantasy game. We don't have any relics, but they did say in her introduction that she is born with the gift of magic. And if you recall, we haven't really heard a whole lot about magic since 1,000 years ago, the War of the Magi. But she seems to have them. Interesting. But yeah, I was talking about our other two characters, Biggs and Wedge, or Bix and Wedge, who got stuck in whatever that ice thing did in the previous episode. Now, I heard a story someone was talking about based on an interview done with one of the creators of the game. And apparently it's canon that Biggs and Wedge did not die during that encounter with the ice thing. I won't say what it is yet. But they were, in fact, warped to another world, doing isekai before it was cool. And eventually, they ended up at the fairgrounds in Chrono Trigger, which is just absolutely fantastic. As far as I'm concerned, that is absolutely fantastic. Now, you'll notice I just made a save state there because, well, there's an interesting little thing here with the treasure chests in this game. A few of them will actually change their contents over the course of the game after certain events, very much like Chrono Trigger did. In this game, it doesn't really make any sense. I don't know how anyone figured it out, but they did, and we now know about it, so I will basically endeavor to show you the final item that you can get out of it. But now I could show you what's in the box and just unload that save state. Or I could leave you hanging with a very important question, one that we've heard in film before.
What's in the box? What's in the fucking box?
Or I could just show you what it is. In this case, we have a Phoenix down. If you leave this alone, later on it will become a different item. It will become an item known as the Pod Bracelet, which I don't recall ever using. But it's there. So anyway, we're going to undo that by loading up, or just loading my save state there. And yeah, I didn't really talk about these enemies before. Nothing particularly special. We have access to the fire spell, press the R1 button to multi-target with it, and we one-shot all of the enemies, and we don't have to worry too much. Even though they're not enemies we've heard of really before, they might as well just be goblins for all the difference it makes in this game. They're just easy fodder enemies to destroy at the start of the game. Nothing particularly special about any of them. Here we have a sleeping bag. Later on, this will become an elixir. In this particular case, in either of those cases, not a huge deal, but that's fine. Alright, so yeah, I'm not really worried about the combat yet. There's not really a whole lot to talk about, just cast fire. If you have Terra in the front row, you can use her normal attack and it will kill the enemies as well. This kills them both in one turn, so that's even better. But yeah, over to the left there's nothing, so we're going to head up here. Once you reach the stairs, I would recommend stripping her naked, even if you're not all for that kind of thing. Not that it makes a huge difference in the grand scheme of things, but, well, we like to optimize things. Uh-oh. Well, there's the game. I guess we, oh, no, we're back up. Oh, I guess she's not quite recovered from her slave crown quite yet. Can't survive all those cloud level falls here. Sweet little magic user. Practically own you. You'll notice with the fan translation, they translated Kefka's name to Kefka with a C for some reason. I don't know why, but that's fine. But yeah, again, we're gonna see Daughter with the power of magic. Myself is moving as I wish. Sure it is, Google. Sure it is. Alright. So here's the, a little bit of a memory flash here. Now, if you recall, what Vix and Wedge were talking about is Terra had managed to defeat, I think it was 50 Magitek soldiers on her own. Or 50 of our soldiers. I can't remember if it was Magitek or not, but 50 soldiers. I'm guessing this is kind of the relation back to that. Brink of a major breakthrough. In the days to come, we'll witness the total revival of magic. 'Tis our destiny. Definitely wasn't a fan of Star Wars. No, not at all. Take this mystic force and claim what is rightfully ours. You'll notice Terra in the background next to the Magitek armor, and Kefka there on the right, or on the left, sorry. I know my directions. I'm not sure who the other two are. I'm assuming the one in the front is Gestalt, the, well, in some of the other parts of the translation it was saying Gestalt's Empire, so we're assuming that he is the leader of the Emperor, or the Empire. He is the Emperor, and there it is. Emperor Gestalt. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce that. Just my guess. I was looking into like the I think it's a psychological discipline of Gestaltism or something like that, and I was trying to see if there was some kind of relationship between that and Gestalt the Emperor in terms of how the story was being told, but from what I could tell, there's no real relation. It's just a name they popped out of somewhere. Took you long enough. How goes the robbing and plundering trade? Well, we have new styles of emotes, and they're pretty expressive. I dig them. They're a lot more expressive than they were in, say, Final Fantasy 4 and 5. Treasure Hunter and Trail-Worn Traveler, searching the world for relics of the past. We have Locke. I prefer the term treasure hunting. Semantic nonsense. There's a huge difference. Yeah, well, he is a treasure hunter in the same way that Indiana Jones is an archaeologist. I'm pretty sure someone else has already made that comparison. I'm sure I've heard that before. I'm not sure where off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure I've heard that before. But yeah, Locke is another character. In fact, I was talking about the writers working in pairs. I believe Terra and Locke's story were two characters written for by the same person. I don't remember who off the top of my head. Anyway, were you the one that sent for me? Actually, I met my daughter. And of course, they translated his name to Rock instead of Locke. Lovely. I guess Google has been watching too much Black Lagoon or something. Yeah, there's a girl I'd like you to meet. Better not have anything to do with a Magitek riding Imperial Witch. Now, Game Boy Advance translation just drops all pretext and goes, you don't mean, like everyone already knows what's going on. Pursuing her even as we speak. Now, over on the right here with the Game Boy Advance translation, I want to point something out here. This city has the strength to stand up to the Empire, but it won't use it. People are too stubbornly independent to join an underground resistance group like the Returners. Tried to explain that the Empire was controlling the girl. Oops. But they wouldn't even listen. That's what we get from the Game Boy Advance translation. Here we just get the town is no match for the Empire. Now, I talked about this a little bit in the previous episode, but we were showing, or I was saying that Woolsey, when he translated the game the first time, had originally had a script that was twice as long and had to be cut back a lot. Look at the size of the text. They're fitting 7 short words across the length of the text. I don't know if this was a limitation at the time. Why couldn't they just shrink the text? It doesn't need to be that gigantic. You shrunk the text down, you know, by 30%, you could fit 30% more text on there, approximately. And then you could have a lot more that the characters could say instead of having so little that they say, which oftentimes happens. There's like, you can see a lot of the dialogue, there's not a lot of words there oftentimes. Here is kind of a, it goes against my point, this particular box of text, but yeah, you can see here, he's talking about you could get your independence if they joined with the Returners, and then goes into, you know, basically just telling us, you know, that the Returners are an underground resistance group instead of, you know, doing it a little, yeah. See, I really like the way the Game Boy Advance translation translated this whole sequence. It makes a lot more sense, it brings up some more information, and what it does that the original doesn't is it sets up that this city has the strength to stand up to the Empire, but won't use it. That's something we're not particularly sure what's going on with quite yet. Girl wasn't responsible for actions. We must get her to understand our dilemma. Alright, we better help her. Make your way to Figaro and talk to the king. Now we gotcha. Hello, who are you guys? Wonderful. There's a whole bunch of them. Kubo? Wait a minute. I know what that means. I played Final Fantasy V. Yay! We got moogles. Everybody loves moogles. If you look over at the fan translation, Moglies. They had some interesting ways of translating them. The actual name, let's see here, was that it? Yeah, it's over here. The Tsumoguri is the Japanese word for moogles. It eventually got translated to moogles over in the West, but Moguri. It's kind of interesting if you are familiar with the modding scene for Final Fantasy IX. The kind of the main, or at least one of the most well-known to me, mods for that game for increasing the graphics is called the Moguri mod, a callback to the original name of moogles here. So anyway, they're going to help us, and they dance around and do 360s. Use us to save Terra from the guards. Sure. You'll fight using 3 different groups. Press the Y button to switch between them. Your job is to defeat the commander of the guards before his men reach Terra. Save her or else. Pretty basic. Alright. First things first. Even Locke has some friends with him, so we can't select their equipment. You'll notice that all of them have names kind of that are mentioning Kupo, or, you know, plays on Kupo. In the Japanese version, they were all plays on Mog or Moogle or Muguri. So yeah, all the names are kind of different between the two games, or well, the two translations of the game. So yeah, let's take a quick look here at our equipment. You can see certain characters, such as Kupop, has a Morning Star, which you'll later learn is a long-range weapon. So in order to reduce damage, we can actually put you in the back row. So we're going to put you up here, and we're going to switch to another party here. And move you down. Basically, we're putting characters out front. And I'm going to switch one more time. We're going to take a look at some of our other characters here. We have Mog, who's the only one who's not part of this whole naming scheme. Probably should tell you something. Flail is also a long-range weapon, as is Full Moon, so we're going to put both those two in the back row. Now, we can't equip anyone's equipment, except Mog, interestingly enough. And we can indeed flat out steal his equipment. We'll do that later. And one more set of characters here. What do we got? You're equipping a chocobo brush. Okay, well, the bottom one there can go in the back row, so let's do that. None of these can be equipped, so we're good right here. Now, the goal here is to use all of the characters except... That's unfortunate. All of the moogle parties except for Locke's party as you progress through this area. And there's a specific reason for that. Alright, we're going to open up the menu here real quick, and I'm going to go into the config. Now, the interesting thing about this game is it's got a battle speed setting, but it's not exactly the battle speed. Due to how this game actually functions, the battle speed in this game does exactly one thing. It determines how fast the enemies are. It has no bearing on how fast your characters are, so it's basically a difficulty slider. So you actually want to turn your battle speed all the way down to slow because it only affects the enemies, unless you want a more challenging game. If you want a more challenging game, you can change it to whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. You can leave it as it is. You want to turn the message speed on to fast. Everything else can pretty much stay as it is. That's fine. Yeah, you can change your magic order. You can do lots of different things. There might be something I'll do in here later, but for now, just to make our lives easier, especially early game, to avoid taking as much damage as possible, we're going to drop that battle speed down to 6 so that the enemies are slower. It's not exactly the most logical way of doing things, but okay. Now, the advantage of that is if you get a lucky enough spot at the start of the thing, is you can kill the mammoth guy before he gets blizzard off, which is what's going to do a chunk of the damage toward your characters. As I said, though, we're going to try and use our our moogle parties to deal with as many of the enemies as we can, because we don't want to use Locke's party for that. Locke, as a treasure hunter / thief, he has the ability to steal items, and we want to save him for the boss to, well, steal items. So yeah, all of these fights are pretty much the same. We're just going to mash the attack button. The moogles don't know how to do anything else. If you are not paying attention, the enemies get all the way up to Terra, I believe it's a game over. But if you're not paying attention and you've placed your other parties in logical spots like I have, they will initiate battle on their own. So you'll notice Mog has a lot more HP than anyone else. Also does quite a bit more damage. So yeah, Mog is pretty powerful there, and mastered a new dance. Interesting. I'm sure that will be apparent what that is a little bit later. Alright, we're going to switch party members over to Mog's party here. And now, I could have shown it off here, but Mog actually has a new command. And I can show it off in the menu here. He has the dance command, Dusk Requiem. He's also level 11, and everyone else is 3, 6, 8. Going over to the other party here, we've got 8, 6, 6, 8. Basically, he's higher level than anyone else. He must be the leader of this group. I'm sure that's the only possible reason why, you know, we can equip him and steal his gear and nobody saw that. I stole nothing. Alright, so now we have Locke's party here. There's one more enemy here. That's the boss. So what we're going to do here is we're going to give you the mithril knife that we stole from Terra, the mithril shield that we stole from Mog, and yeah, we're going to leave him in the front row. Sure, we can leave him in the front row just because I don't want to change his rows later. Yeah, I think we're pretty much all set up there. And let's approach. We have boss time. Now, an interesting thing about this boss here is, first things first, we want to steal from the boss himself. Sometimes the steal rate in this game sucks. Sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. Now, I'm not gonna focus on trying to just... Okay, I am. Okay, let's just flat out kill him now. Now, if you save one of the soldiers there, or one of the wolves, then it makes part of this fight a little bit easier, and he won't use charge. Charge basically forces everyone in the party to do an attack, and he only uses it when he's by himself. But we're usually pretty good. As long as we steal that mithril knife, we'll be fine. Yeah, if you leave one of the Lobos alive, it prevents Marshall from using his charge attack. We stole Mog's equipment. That's kind of important. Also, fighting one battle with Mog is kind of important to learn that dance thing. Yeah. And as I said in that previous episode, press the X button on a Super Nintendo controller to pass the turn to somebody else. Thanks, Moogles. We're in your debt. Anyway, that's pretty much all the time we have for... Well, you know what? I think I'll go a little long on this one. I didn't go super long on the opening episode, and we haven't really made a whole lot of progress. Normally, I would have made a lot more progress around here, especially early on in the game. I don't want to spend super long episodes on such an old game just because not a whole lot, like, we'll basically whip through this game pretty quick. It's not super long by any stretch of the imagination, so... But yeah, don't thank me, thank the Moogles. Trapped in a fog. Yep, unfortunately. Man said my memory would come back. Yeah, you don't even know his name. Now, if we scroll over here to the Game Boy Advance one, don't worry. I won't leave your side until your memory returns. I'm not going to up and abandon someone just because they lost their memory. I'll keep you safe. Here we have kind of a slightly different take on it, but it's very much the same sentiment applies. And this line of dialogue, as far as I understand, is unique to the Super Nintendo version. Yeah, it's not in the original script. I'm not sure why they decided to add it here, but the secret entrance might be useful someday, so don't forget about it. Okay, video game, if you insist. And we can walk out. And it kind of locks itself in there. And Locke goes for a little walk there. Alright, well, that's pretty much all the time we have for this one. Next time, we can go talk to this guy here and learn some basics about the game and the world that we're in. And, well, I guess we were told to head for Figaro, so I believe that's where we're going to head in the next one. That's all for this one, and I'll see you guys next time.